Good evening, Jacques. It is November 10, and for everyone tuning in, we are at X, YouTube, Facebook, and maybe Rumble. That integration isn't working very well for us. But if you want to join the comments, you can. You can chat with us. We can get them on screen, and we can have some dialogue back and forth. And welcome. So, Jacques, over to you. What do you want to talk about tonight?
I'll first tell you that we are in the middle of a snowstorm here in southwestern Ontario.
I'm not here in South Alberta, so
Okay.
that's good for us, and too bad for you.
Yes, indeed. Well, we should talk about the budget, among other things. A budget that is an improvement over the Trudeau era. In my books, it's taken it from a 0 out of 10 to a 1 out of 10. So we're heading in the
How
right
so?
direction. How so? Well, primarily because of the cuts to the federal manpower. Although, I say this, I reserve the right, of course, to criticize them if none of this comes to pass, because I will see it when I believe it. But, intending to cut 40,000 jobs over the next few years, it's certainly much better than increasing it by leaps and bounds, as Trudeau used to do.
And of course, you're talking about jobs in the public service, and
Yes.
Trudeau bloated the public service. There are hundreds of. It's the largest employer in the country, with hundreds of thousands of employees, and I was happy to see that there might be some cuts.
Yeah, I think we're north of 350,000 federal employees. So
this is just a start. They, keep cutting.
Yep.
What else was in the budget that you found of interest?
Well,
is there anything else good? Because that's the one thing, and I don't quite trust how that will be done. Which departments will they cut those jobs from? I'm sure the Liberal Party will find a way to do it in such a way that I despise the results, but that is the one
you'll
tidbit.
recall that we had Kim Moody on our Libertarian Lens,
yes.
And he writes very good articles in the National Post, and I'm going to quote him because I'm not the expert that he is, but he did point out to a couple of tax measures that, like one was a hugely underused tax credit, if I recall, and they're doing away with it because basically it was just wasting people's time. So he pointed that was, that was very. So if you scroll down to the good, it may actually. So the repeal of the underused housing tax.
This was a tax on houses that had extra rooms and is that right? Explain what an underused housing tax is.
Well, I think you're right. I think it was essentially something to kind of penalize people who had homes that were too big or something to that effect.
Or homes that were empty, like a second property or a third income property that was left empty without renters in it. So this is the government trying to force property owners to rent the home if there's available space. Yeah,
I didn't express myself well at the beginning on this. And then part of a repeal of a luxury tax. Right, kind of minor stuff, but if it's good, if it's a repeal, we have to applaud it.
Yeah,
but
some of these things are directionally favorable. For us.
Yeah, but it's pretty limited, right? Because then he goes to bad and. So my general comment, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, but I say this simply because these budgets are broken record because they're always the same, is that essentially we have a government that, and in this case it's Carney, who believes that he's the one guy who will finally get central planning done properly, because it's a government that is massively dedicated to centrally plan the economy. It's let me put it this way, right? Like, so first of all, I've warned people about this. This idea that the budget is now split between operational and capital, and that he's going to close the gap, well, meaning eliminate the deficit on operational. His argument would be this: it is absolutely proper to borrow if it's going to be for capital expenditures that are going to make us more productive and what have you. The fatal flaw in this, and it's always the same thing, is that he's assuming that government employees who cannot run the passport properly, and as our friend Snarky Trader, I was actually going to mention it, but thank you. Auditors, so CRA call centers gave auditors the wrong information 83% of the time. If you can get one, you may actually be better off not getting your phone picked up, because it'll prevent you from getting the wrong information. But so we have a government that keeps on showing how absolutely, utterly useless they are. But never mind that, right? We may not be able to issue passport on time. We may not be able to provide you with the proper tax information, but boy, we can centrally plan an economy. It's laughable on the very face of it. And that's his belief system. Imagine for a moment, like, the difference between the private sector and the government, right? Because he's talking a lot about infrastructure. So imagine that we have a bridge that would be financed by a private company. Well, what would you do before building it? Well,
you would do some analysis,
but
some planning, some architectural choices, ask for investment from others if they want to participate in the investment.
Right.
You'd have a plan to pay it back.
Yes. And one of the things, of course, that would drive this is that you would try to assess usage. Right? Now, under the government's lens, though, this idea that, profit and loss, feedback through economic signals that are not coercive, things of that nature, they completely disappear. Because I'll tell you, one of the lens, and it's a big, massive one that they use, is job creation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, in fact, I would say it's probably foremost. If the bridge ends up being used by almost no one because it's out in the boonies, but that for 3 years you get high-paying jobs out of it, they would see this as a victory, even though it is a complete waste and misallocation of resources. That's the sad part of it. So this budget is terrible because, first of all, the deficit is going to almost double from the Trudeau last projection, which is unfathomable. But it's being disguised by saying, well, borrowing is fine for capital investment. And I'm saying, well, the premise here is that you're going to do a good job of assessing whether these infrastructure projects are worthwhile. And I just pointed out that I don't think that's the case at all. I think this is going to be a disaster. In fact, I am convinced it's going to be a disaster. We've been down this road before, and it's always the same thing. You cannot centrally plan an economy.
The deficit is expected to add $325 billion in the next few years to our debt as a country. We're already paying, I heard an estimate of $60 billion to service the current debt, which is more than we spend on military. It's more than we spend on healthcare. It's more than the government takes in on GST. So this deficit is crazy to me. It's just unbelievable. Clearly, Mark Carney and everyone surrounding him feel fully confident that they can just spend without limits. So where are they getting that idea?
I'm sorry, I was coughing. I missed the question.
Well, where do they get the idea that they can just spend without limits? Like, there's
Well, and
Who's
again,
whispering in their ear that this is okay and it's not going to end in debt collapse or
I,
currency collapse? I'm sorry.
yeah, I think the answer under Trudeau would have been, I don't know and I don't care. I think under Carney,
Yeah, don't ask me about fiscal. You won't mind if I don't think about fiscal policy.
yes, right, or monetary. I think
Monetary policy, sorry, he said.
but I think Carney would tell you, no, this is going to pay for itself, right? Like he's talking about how this is going to spur private investment. See, this is another example where, like, I don't understand how he's thinking about these things. Why would, like, other than providing massive subsidies, right? I don't see the private sector saying, "Oh, gee whiz, the government is doing this; it must be good." I mean, I was in the private sector; we never would have thought that way. But unless, of course, you get a massive handout, say, "Hey, you do this, and we'll, we'll pay for half of it," or or something to that. So, I mean, all of this is voodoo economics.
Speaking of the private sector, like we know how this story ends. I saw this tweet the other day from it was about Norway. Norway a number of years ago increased taxes on the wealthy, and so the wealth tax was expected to raise $146 million for the government, but it led to a $500 million loss because, well, people with capital took their capital elsewhere. Like it's that simple. And one of the statements that I heard in response, the government responded by saying that they underestimated the mobility of capital. And so, as Norway's wealthiest people took their money out of the country and started businesses elsewhere, they took their companies out of the country, and of course, the tax revenue for Norway fell. And it just blows me away that the political response was, we underestimated the mobility of capital.
Well, this is something they really don't like. You know this agreement by, I think, G20 countries of all agreeing to a minimum corporate tax. That happened
Yes.
last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, some sort of global agreement.
Yeah.
Minimum
Well,
corporate tax. Yes.
all of this, of course, was to try to do away with the Irelands of the world, right? Because they just hate it when you got a country that goes rogue and says, "Please come here because our corporate tax will only be 12%."
Yeah. To attract investment, of course. It should absolutely be in the state, in Ireland's toolbox to lower their corporate tax if they wish to attract investment.
And let me repeat here again a point.
Like each state is competing with each other for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, but like if you have this minimum, you don't need to compete anymore. You
Right.
can go, you can go and do terrible things without fear, and that's not the way it should work.
Yeah.
But I was going to say that, and again, the point's made often. Corporations do not pay taxes. What happens is the consumer, like I used to price products, and the pricing was always on an after-tax basis. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you got a component of the price that your consumer is going to pay so that you can pay the corporate tax. I mean, corporations just become instruments to spread out the tax load so that nothing sticks out too much, right? There was this forget French economist who said that the art of taxation was to pluck as many feathers from the goose with the minimum amount of hissing, right?
Yeah.
And
and by the way, for those listening, I mean, Jacques is speaking with experience here. His career as an actuary, clearly you saw from the inside how an insurance company prices their products. Is that what you're referring to? Some experience about pricing after tax?
Yeah, but it's not just the insurance industry. I mean, I don't know.
It's everywhere.
We've never priced anything that says, "Oh, you know what? We're going to pay on a pre-tax basis and then show a loss at the end of the year." It doesn't work that way.
Now, you were the one that told me, and I'm going to put something on screen here, because you were the one who told me about this bizarre relationship that our federal government has with this Karl Marx graduate. So apparently, the IMF, well, you know more about this than I. So let's over to you. Please tell us, what is this all about? Who is this lady, and what does she have to do with Mark Carney?
Well, what struck me is that she's quoted repeatedly, or as the
In
article
the
says,
budget.
generously. Yeah, generously. Now, the question I had was, okay, first of all, I got to look it up, right? And then you find out she's Bulgarian. She's in up to her neck in the IMF, and she's a graduate of the Karl Marx, right? And I'm thinking, why would they quote her? Well, it's exactly the same reason that Keynesianism, in spite of its repeated failures, exists today. Those are the types of people who will grant government a fig leaf to spend out of control, right? You got an economist that says, hey, spending like crazy is the way to go. This is the way you generate wealth. And politicians may not even believe it, but they will certainly use it because it serves their purpose.
Yeah, so this is so her name is Georgieva, and she has like 4 different names, a long string of names, and we don't have access to the National Post article here. Sorry, so I don't have the full text, but a major influence on Mark Carney's big spending ways. Like, this is like, if you've ever wondered how communist Canada is, you just have to look at the relationship that our prime minister has to graduates of the Karl Marx Institute of Economics.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
I mean, anything that politicians need in order to justify out of control spending, they will do. And if it means quoting even clearly a communist economist, that's what they will do.
I'd rather that Mark Carney pay attention to the Derek Elliott Institute of Economics, or the YouTube of Economics. Let's tune in here. Derek is, of course, a candidate in our federal election, our recent federal election. He was a candidate with the Libertarian Party. Please check out his videos. He shares them on social media, and he had a few things to say about this budget. So I think we should have a listen. Now I'm going to put him here and make sure that the sound is on as I think I have to stop sharing. I have to make sure that the sound is on, everybody. Sorry about this. And here we go. All right, Derek, take it away.
Friends, Mark Carney and the Liberal Party are telling us that the latest massive deficit is a generational investment. Let's be honest, that's political spin for generational debt. We're facing a cost of living crisis, and their answer is to spend more of the money we don't have, selling every one of us with their bills. This isn't a sustainable path forward. It's a fantasy budget built on borrowing. The reality is simple. The government cannot spend its way to prosperity. We need fiscal responsibility. We need the politicians to live within the country's means, just like every Canadian family is asked to do on a daily basis. Stop the reckless spending, balance the budget now, get out of our wallets, and let the markets work. Let me hear your passionate opinion in the comments.
Jacques, what's your passionate opinion about that?
Well, I thought it was well done. And let me add something. Again, speaking as an actuary, I've mentioned this many, many times before, but for all the concentration, which is fine, right, on the deficit and the debt, the unfunded liabilities in this country are never addressed, right? Carney, who always likes to pass himself off as the smartest guy in the room, hasn't said a word. There's absolutely nothing in the budget to address the largest fiscal problem faced by this country. I mean, I say this to put this in the context that it is even more irresponsible to run these deficits and the debt in light of the massive unfunded liabilities.
Is there some truth to, like, I was hearing, but I couldn't prove it and I couldn't cite it, but I was hearing that in this budget, Mark Carney has put the CPP, he's listed the CPC as collateral in the country's debt.
Well, okay.
So are you aware of that or not? Because
No, I was not aware of that, but I would tell you without even reading it that the CPP as it stands is only 20% funded.
Right. Most of that is an unfunded liability as is.
Right. So it means that the liabilities are greater than the asset. You can't start using assets as collateral when they're backing something in insufficient amount.
Yeah. If anyone has watched The Big Short, that's what the crash of 2008 was all about. That mortgages that were bad were used as collateral against other mortgages that were also bad, used as collateral against other mortgages that were equally bad, and so on. It was bad all the way down. So I'm not sure. We should look into that and verify that. I was just noticing a comment from Adam Wesley Conrad. I can get that on screen, actually. And I think that the part of the budget that scares me is that there doesn't seem to be any slowing down of reckless spending in our welfare state for people who aren't even citizens and for people who have come here under questionable means. So, for example, let me get another one on screen here. This Globe and Mail report indicates that Ottawa is paying $1.1 billion. Now, I think that's annually for asylum seekers. Now, we can debate whether there should be such a thing as asylum or borders or whatever, but so long as there's a welfare state, I have a problem with this, in particular because most of these so-called asylum seekers are coming from countries that aren't even at war, like India, for example. The greatest number of asylum seekers coming to Canada are apparently from India. They arrive at the border on a plane or some other means, and they claim asylum. And then we know how efficient our government is. It takes 1-2 years before their asylum claim is even reviewed. And so here they are in Canada. Their employment status is kind of questionable, but they're receiving an immense amount of funding for hotel rooms, food allowances, furniture allowances, clothing allowances. Like there's no end, it seems to, and of course healthcare and various other services in the welfare state. So, Adam, thanks for that comment. I think that's a huge challenge. Anything to say on that, Jacques?
Well, I would say it's the same old thing, right? It's people engaging in virtue signaling that are paid for by somebody else. Like it's very easy to be noble with other people's money, and that's what's at play again here. Because it reminded me of now this was in the UK, but the UK in many ways maybe slightly ahead of us in terms of going to doomsday here. But you had a whole bunch of what looked to me like middle to upper middle class people demonstrating about some, again, asylum reversal by the government, and the guy was saying, well, if you feel that strongly, how many of them would you offer shelter to in your home? And the look of horror on the face of these people was quite telling. But once again, right, like, oh, I'm going to go protest so people can see me and think, wow, what a nice person it is. But boy, don't ask me to lift a finger, to actually take them in. So I don't have a lot of time for people who engage in this type of stuff, right? I mean, you show me that you got skin in the game, and then I will believe you more. But as it is, I don't think they have any skin in the game at all, and just want to look good.
Agreed, and well said. want to change the topic just slightly. We're still talking about the budget, but I have a clip here. It's 48 seconds of Mark Carney. If we can stand to listen to it, he's going to tell us about how the Buy Canadian strategy is somehow helpful to us. So I'm going to put that on screen. Buy Canadian, here it comes. Whatever that means.
Our Buy Canadian strategy is part of a larger movement amongst Canadian businesses. A movement that's putting maple leaf stickers on grocery aisles. A movement that's increasing sales and coupons for Canadian-made products. And a movement that's choosing Canadian suppliers for new contracts. And one implication of Buy Canadian is that we need a more unified Canadian economy than ever. So the federal government is leading the effort to remove internal barriers so that Canadian products and services can flow easily across the country. Notre plan est ambitieux et audacieux.
Buy Canadian. I can't help but think if Conservative Party would have formed government and they would be talking about Buy Canadian, the mainstream news media would be just outraged at the populist approach and the protectionist approach and the nationalism, Buy Canadian. But somehow Mark Carney gets away with it, and suddenly it's a good idea. But what do you think this means? What's he really talking about?
Well, the one thing that struck me was this sales and coupons.
Yeah.
So that strikes me as essentially subsidies to buy Canadian goods. So of course,
stickers. He's going to put. He's
Okay,
paying
well-
for stickers to put on groceries, so we know that which ones are sourced in Canada or not.
Right. Now, stickers, I don't think it's that bad in the sense that if you want to help people identify, like people who are keen on supporting Canadian, and as long as there's no coercion, I'm all for that, right? If you want to do that, that's fine. But I object to what is implied here, which is subsidies, because what it amounts to is if, you got a Canadian consumer who's got a choice between a Canadian product and an American product or a Swedish product or whatever it is, and they don't pick the Canadian one, well, there's got to be a reason for this, right? Is the product better quality? Is it cheaper? Whatever it is, right? And now if it's an admission that the other product was chosen because, at least in the eyes of the purchaser, it was a better product. And now you're coming along and you say, well, no, that's not right? So we're now going to subsidize the Canadian product. And one of the beauties, of course, of free trade is that you're compelling producers to compete, right? You don't want to start telling somebody, sit on your hands, don't innovate, don't try to improve your products or the prices or whatever, because you are protected. See, that's one of the biggest problems with this type of attitude, right? He's basically saying to Canadian producers, well, if you can't compete, we'll help you compete by essentially taxing your fellow citizen and providing you with the subsidies. The whole thing's madness.
Madness. Agreed. Next clip. Our government finding even more ways to spend our money. I was thinking that, are the socialists happy in Canada right now? We have a senator that has introduced a bill called Bill S-206, Guaranteed Basic Income. This is in second reading currently. It's presently in the second reading. It has been encouraged to go to committee for further study. The latest debate was held just a couple of weeks ago. And the way I understand this works is that the senator can introduce an independent member's bill. They debate it in the Senate. If it passes third reading, then the Senate recommends it for committee. Committees will study it. then committees will recommend that it be returned to the Senate, it then goes to the House of Commons. And so we know that this bill in a Liberal majority Senate is going to get passed. It'll be passed over to the House of Commons. The House of Commons is filled with a near majority Liberal, and obviously some willing NDPs will go along with it. Canada's about to have this bizarre plan to just pay everybody above 17 years of age $2,000 a month. Are the socialists happy yet? They're getting everything that they've ever wanted, it seems. But it seems they're angrier than ever. But I mean, I don't know how this is gonna. I just don't know how I don't know how the country pays for this.
Well, therein lies maybe the one way, the one thing that's going to help us is that it is so, I forget the price tag, but I read it once. The price tag is absolutely enormous. Like, it's totally unaffordable.
Well, well, I've heard 95 billion in the first year or something, but that doesn't make sense. $2,000 times citizens over 17 years of age, it works out to be something like $650 billion a year.
Yeah, that's more along the lines of what
that's 150% of our current entire budget.
Yeah. But
yeah, that's how you pay currency devaluation. Exactly.
I mean, but this is, again, a perfect example of act first and think about later, right? I mean, what another good thing in the budget is that the Liberals have put the kibosh to this 2 billion trees to be planted, right? And I think I might have mentioned before that just a back of the envelope calculation showed that there aren't anywhere near enough nurseries in this countries to produce 2 billion seedlings. So once again, right, let's rush out this announcement. It sounds good. We're going to look like we're a bunch of green people, but we'll do the thinking, the hard work afterwards. But
it worked.
Well, I know that's the problem.
It's crazy that it worked. People rallied behind it. They voted for Justin Trudeau. He's going to make everything greener. People believed it.
I know.
Apparently.
I know. But you would think that. I remember talking to a nurse not too long ago, and I was laughing because I was looking at a clip of, well, this was maybe 3 years ago. I was watching a clip of Trudeau, and I laughed, and she said, "Well, what is so funny?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. Maybe you're a big fan of the guy." And when she found out it was Trudeau, she said, "You know what? I voted for him in 2015, and then I saw him trying to describe single-use plastic in his household and how totally incoherent he was." And she said, I thought, I'm never voting for this guy again. So people can change their mind. So you're hoping that after a few of these, let's announce first and think about later, people say, you know what? I don't think this is the way to do things. But you're right. I mean, they get away with it because, unfortunately, too many people go along.
Yeah, it sounds good, and there's profit to be made in that propaganda, and it worked. I want to show you something else that has caught my eye recently. And by the way, this author, I'm not sure if you're aware of her. So I'm going to put her on screen. Here we go. Speaking of the ways that government spends our money, okay? As everyone's preparing our taxes and thinking about the federal budget, almost $5 million was spent to review and update the Mongolia Gender Equality Strategy. $4.9 million spent March 7th, 2025 on the Mongolia Gender Equality Strategy.
Why are we involved in this? I mean, this has never been never will be a function of government to start getting involved in other people's or other countries. It's just astonishing.
9.75 million to leverage gender responsive climate finance in business support organizations to strengthen capacity and translate between gender and finance to promote gender lens investing in Vietnam. So Andy Lee, by the way, the reason I'm bringing this up on screen is Andy Lee does some great work. Jacques, I would like to propose that if a libertarian ever forms government, I would recommend Andy Lee for the Order of Merit or the Order of Canada Medal. She deserves it. She does all kinds of, like, I think she volunteers. She just does this in her spare time. And she uncovers a significant number of very interesting links between our government and foreign agents, foreign states. She uncovers all kinds of interesting ways that our government spends money. So I've been following her. I'm happy to recommend that others should too.
She's on. Is she on X?
She is. She
Okay.
is the Real Andy Lee Show.
Okay.
She's had some trouble on former X when it was Twitter. She
Of course. I mean,
yeah. So her accounts were frozen. Remember when the Trudeau Foundation was under some under the magnifying lens when it was discovered that payments were being made to the foundation from members of the CP, the Chinese Communist Party? She uncovered evidence of those relationships. There were photographs and there were documents, and then all of a sudden her Twitter channel was just frozen, banned, and it took her some time to recover her profile, I think, after Elon Musk bought the platform. I have one more topic. I'd like your thoughts about this one. This is about, of course, the crossing the floor. The detail is pretty straightforward. I'm going to put on screen here a picture of this former Conservative member of Parliament, Chris D'Autremont. 17 years as a Progressive Conservative MLA, then he became a Conservative MP. So after 2 decades building a career of Conservative loyalty, he suddenly becomes a Liberal. Now, the question I have for you, Jacques, is this. Given that the Liberal Party currently has 170 seats, plus, does that include Chris? I think it does. If this is up to date, I'm going to put this on screen. They need 172 to form a majority. What would happen, do you think? Do you think it's right or wrong that someone crossing the floor can change the structure of Parliament from minority status to a majority status?
Well, I'll go even further. And if I may use hyperbole for a moment, to quote the old line, I hope there's a special place in hell for people like D'Autremont. Because I think we live in a world without honor. What I think he did is profoundly dishonorable.
Yeah.
If you truly believed what he did, he would have resigned. I mean, it's betraying people who voted for him. It even questions very much, to my mind, his ability to think, because not only is he dishonorable, but it was the election was April.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking like 6 months ago. So you are telling me, because of course he said the reason he's doing this because he has a problem with Poilievre's style or whatever. Well, Poilievre hasn't changed at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Poilievre is today what he was 6 months ago or a year ago. So he
Do you think behind the scenes in caucus meetings maybe it's gotten pretty hot? But even if it is, I don't think that's reason for someone to change teams.
Well, my point is, like I would say, like let's assume that Polyev had done something that was like truly awful, and we can imagine different scenarios. That to me would still not be. You can't take it out on your constituents. Your constituents voted for you. Like I know in this country, the problem is that people very seldom vote for the person. I mean, let's face it, it's the color that you represent that, right? So with that in mind, this guy should have the humility to recognize that it wasn't because of him that he won, but because people wanted a conservative. And now you've betrayed them. Like to me, that this is the type of thing that's absolutely unconscionable. You were voted in as a conservative. You can't switch. You resign and run again. And this time, run for the Liberal and see what happens.
Resign, cause a by-election.
Yeah.
Let the voters have the choice again.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. This past week, there have been all kinds of articles about the tradition of crossing the floor and how this is an important aspect of the parliamentary system. And I don't know. I don't buy it. I agree with you. This is a dishonorable move. It should have resigned and gone to by-election.
Yeah, but the people who say these things are politicians. They're trying to provide themselves with a fig leaf for dishonorable behavior.
Yeah,
you don't like 6 months in like this, and now suddenly you say, "Well, I can't work with this guy anymore." Well, my goodness, what's happened in 6 months?
Yeah, but the bigger issue is, for me, the bigger issue is how the actions of one guy, like, so maybe it's one more. I think they're one seat away from majority right now. If one, don't quote me on that, because the data on our screen says that the Liberal Party still has 170 seats. I frankly don't know if this page has been updated since Chris d'Entremont crossed the floor. So they could be at 171. If that's the case, they just need one more. And the structure of our parliament becomes a majority, where I think that's a complete betrayal of even the electoral process, because Canadians didn't elect a majority. They elected a minority government. It's like saying to the government, we're going to trust you to some extent, but we need you to negotiate with the opposition, and this has to be more collaborative in the part. That's the theory, anyways, and I don't think it works that way in reality. But that's the justification often given for minority governments, is that it causes them to have to collaborate more, and that's apparently what Canadians voted for. They did not vote for a Liberal majority. The actions of one guy could cause a kind of takeover.
As I say this, and I pointed this out before, and I'm not quite sure the history as to why it evolved this way, but we have a much more autocratic parliamentary system in Canada than they have in the UK. It is not unusual for MPs, members of the caucus of the government, to vote against their government. And the culture there is such that you actually don't get run out of town or kicked out of caucus. Like, people recognize that you are a sentient being who can disagree with a party. Now, that to me would be okay, right? I mean, you are voted and you're expected to. Well, no, like a good example is that you're supposed to represent your constituents. So what if your government does something that hurts the majority of your constituents? You should be able to say, well, I'm not going to vote for it. But the problem is, now that he's crossed, henceforth, he's going to vote for the Liberals all the time. He's never going to say, you know what, I disagree with this and that I will not vote. So it increases, if you wish, just how bad this this action was.
Well, there we have it. Those are all the topics I wanted to talk about. Anything else on your side?
I don't think so. I think it was bad enough of a week.
I mean, there's more going on. Ostriches in BC. Apparently, Mark Carney is going to spend money on training public servants in military operations. Yeah.
So that reminds it. It is so outrageous. I'm not sure it's true, but that's certainly what the minister said. Do you know that we're about to? The government of Canada is about to purchase submarines. It's going to be between the South Korean manufacturer or a German-Norwegian consortium. And one of the ministers who's involved in this said, we are going to make sure that we're going to go with the one that's going to provide the most Canadian jobs. So suddenly, that implies to me that the actual cost of the purchase is irrelevant. The quality of the product is irrelevant. The fact that our Navy may or may not like it is irrelevant. It's going to be very simple. Which one of you two is going to provide the most Canadian job? And that's, once again, going back to what we were talking about at the top, right? Job creation is so far ahead of all other consideration. It's not surprising that we're in such a mess.
I have a clip here just for some background information. So the real Mr. Bench is saying Carney is looking to South Korea to build submarines for Canada, but South Korea is going to the United States to build its nuclear-powered submarines.
What?
Yeah. So this was recent. This was October 30th, this tweet. So like I said, I just found this. I was doing some keyword searching as you were speaking. If Carney is looking to South Korea to build submarines for Canada, we have to ask, why is South Korea looking to the United States to build submarines?
Well, the only thing I can think of here is that we are purchasing conventional submarines as opposed to nuclear-powered ones.
Oh, gosh.
But still, I mean, again, you know, creating jobs is more important than anything else, right? If we have to stick it to the taxpayers once again to finance costly submarines, yes, let's go to North Korea for those submarines.
The expertise that we'll find there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jacques, is it still snowing?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I see more alerts here for more snowstorms.
We were in luck today. It was 14 degrees here in southern Alberta. Windy, though. Oh, my gosh. It's going to cool down. Hopefully, I can get my motorcycle out once or twice more in the month. We'll see. But it's been good to catch up with you. Nice evening. Thanks for the chat. And good night.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We are on X, Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube. So thanks for the chats. Snarky Trader, good to see you again, and all the others who were able to join.